My name is Sari van Poelje, and I'm the director of Intact Academy and of Team Agility. So I have a school for coaches and consultants, and I have a consultancy firm. I've had my own business since I was 22, so you can count 35 years now. And in that time, I've had the privilege to work in many, many, many different countries with hundreds of people. So on the one hand, I train coaches and consultants from beginner to team coach to executive coach to organizational coach. And I do that in 8 different countries and also online. All our programs are online, and you can see that on www.intactacademy.com. On the other hand, as a consultant, I help businesses innovate their business more quickly than their products so that they can accelerate their time to market. I've been doing that for 35 years before it became a buzzword, and you can find a lot of information on www.teamagility.com. So I'm talking about membership now because a lot of people talk about leadership, but actually there wouldn't be any leaders if there weren't any members. So please don't forget that you're dependent on your members, on membership, to be a good leader as well. We've talked about levels of membership, we've talked about types of membership, we've talked about needs of membership, and we've talked about developing needs of membership depending on how mature you are in a group. Now I want to talk about how do you establish membership at all, because there's many groups you meet in your lifetime, and some groups you become a member of, and some groups you don't become a member of. And partly it's the process that happens for a member, but partly it's also the organization or the systemic process. How do you establish membership? Eric Berne, in his book Structure and Dynamics of Organization, talked about, from a member's point of view, you join when you have a wish and the safety, the security to commit yourself to a group, but also a willingness to compromise in your independence and accept collective norms. That's what Berne said. So as long as the members of your group don't have a wish to join or the safety to join and are not willing to compromise their own independence for the acceptance of collective norms, they are actually not members. And you can't even talk about having a group. So if at the moment you have a team where there are people in that team who say, look, I'm here, I'm doing my job, but I don't want any discussion about the values of the group, that's just, bollocks. I work with a lot of engineers, so they often say this. They will stay solo experts, but they won't actually start working as a group as long as they insist on their independence versus collective norms. This is something to watch out for. Berne said from the organizational point of view, a member belongs when they're eligible, so they meet the requirements, they're adjusted, so they give up their individual proclivities and abide by the group values and ethics, and they are accepted by others. Now, I want to talk about this. What is that process of being accepted by others? Because what happens in a group, what I see often, there are group problems because, from the organizational point of view, they do recruitment on the basis of, do they meet their requirements? They might even, if they're good recruiters, look at, are they accepted? Do they fit? But what recruiters don't always look at is adjustment. So are they willing to give up their individual stuff, to abide by the values and ethics of the group? And that's something that's missing in recruitment. So if you're a recruiter listening to this, really look out for this. So this being accepted and commitment, on the one hand, commitment of the member and the acceptance level of the others of your membership goes through stages. And this was beautifully described by 2 researchers called Moreland and Levine. And they describe really 5 stages of this membership, of commitment and acceptance of membership. So they said, in this first stage of membership, what happens is an individual meets a group and they first start to investigate. So they call that the investigation stage, where you really do reconnaissance. Is this person fit? Are they eligible? And the member also looks at, is this somewhere I want to belong? Because to be truthful, and some people forget that, membership is a two-sided thing. Belonging is not just that you are accepted by a group. Belonging also means you accept the group. And if these two things don't fit, you'll never feel a sense of belonging. So in this first stage, you do reconnaissance, like scouting. Let's call it scouting. Then there's a second stage. We call that the socialization stage. You get into the group and then you're assimilated, and you're assimilated by the group, but also you accommodate. So that means that this is like a first adjustment to the group values and ethics, where you go, okay, so if I want to belong here, this is the behavior I need to show. So one of the good questions you can ask is, what do I have to do around here to get a promotion? Because if you ask that, not at a competence level, but really at a value level, then you know a lot about how to accommodate and assimilate in a group. The third stage of membership, according to Moreland and Levine, is the maintenance stage. So you're in the group, you've done your first kind of adjustment, and then you get into a stage where you kind of know what to do, and you start to negotiate your role. You go, so this is what you asked of me, this is who I am, and I want to negotiate about what I have to do here and what I have to represent in this group. And we call that, if you do that well, we go to an acceptance of your membership. So there's a mutual adjustment. So first there's an individual one, now there's a mutual adjustment. By chance, I was talking to a group leader the other day who was in despair. And she said to me, look, we've grown organically, and now we're in the stage where we have to write down formally role descriptions. But what I'm finding is I'm leaving the group, I'm giving the group a lot of autonomy. They're writing their role descriptions on the basis of what the organization needs. And then it's fed back into the group. And the individuals are all deleting everything they don't think they need to do. So they're not getting any further with that. So that was an interesting example of this, is the mutual acceptance process actually working? Because it's actually, you have to negotiate it in a two-sided way, not just leave people to do this. So that was an interesting example of how acceptance doesn't work. The fourth stage that Moreland and Levine talk about is really the resocialization stage. So you've gone through this reconnaissance, you've done the first individual accommodation, now you have the mutual negotiation of your role, and then you go to a place where you resocialize. So you kind of have to renegotiate at a much deeper level or accept the differences. And this is where really the group character comes into play, because in this divergent stage, you not only assimilate someone, but you also accept divergence. The more character, we say, the more character a group has, so the more room there is for persona, being yourself in a group, the more acceptance there is of diversity and divergence. Of course, not all groups should accept divergence in certain circumstances. So this is the interesting thing about COVID. I want to come back to that. Because when a group is in crisis, so there is pressure from the outside, there's a risk of being invaded, and literally now we're being invaded by a virus. Actually, the room for divergence is minimalized, because there is very little room for divergence if you're under attack. And that's what you see happening now. And some people still have the imago, the image that they're free in society if they're under attack. And that's something perhaps we should be educated more about. Divergence is possible if the boundaries of a system are stable. And this is a whole different webinar I'll speak about. So we need to, at a certain moment, to accept that divergence is minimalized under attack. But on the other hand, a leader should create and accept divergence if there's a stable group structure. So the member has been assimilated, everyone is kind of doing their job. Now is the time to also accept differences. Without differences, no innovation. That's the problem you see. Yeah. So the fifth stage, according to Moreland and Levine, of the fifth stage of membership, according to them, is the remembrance stage. So this is where member exit, and you have this need of the member to leave behind a legacy, but also the need of the group to reminisce. So it's really important when you want to manage group membership well that you mark the exit of members. If you don't do that, people start to question how important they are in the group. And if you don't leave a stage of legacy and reminiscence, it actually doesn't offer the group the closure it needs to actually continue without that member. So, the question for you, of course, is in what stage of membership are you? And if you're a leader, how well are you managing these stages of membership within your organization? In society, the question is, in what stage of membership are we, if you look at the reaction to COVID? And if you know your stage of membership, what do you need to do to go to the next stage?